Who do you think controls the future of trade? Is it the power players in Silicon Valley, like Elon Musk shaping the next phase of commerce? Or is it global giants like Xi Jinping with his ambitions to lead the digital economy? Or is it AI and decentralized technologies making the rules now? The truth is, we're on the edge of a revolution in global trade. And the question isn't who's trading what, it's who's making the deals. What if the modern world, the phones we scroll, the clothes we wear, the jobs we work, actually began with a camel, not a metaphorical camel, a real one, trotting through a scorching desert loaded with bundles of silk, spices, and a few terrified merchants hoping they wouldn't get robbed by bandits before the next oasis? That dusty trail became one of the most powerful forces in human history. Global trade. Today, you tap a button and a package shows up from halfway around the world. But 2,000 years ago, getting silk from China to Rome was like launching a Mars mission. It took months, maybe years. You needed an army of traders, translators, and a weird level of trust in complete strangers who didn't speak your language. But somehow, it worked. And it worked so well, it changed everything. The Silk Road wasn't just a trade route. It was a civilization router. It carried paper, religion, gunpowder, disease, poetry, and philosophies that would shape empires. It created billion-dollar markets before banks even existed. And it all started with a basic human idea. You've got something I want. I've got something you want. Let's deal. Of course, trading back then wasn't exactly frictionless. Imagine haggling with someone who doesn't speak your language, has never seen your product before, and suspects you might be a demon because you have blue eyes. That's where early trade got interesting. It wasn't just about goods, it was about building trust across worlds. By the time the Roman Empire realized how much they loved silk, they were basically bleeding silver trying to get it from China. Meanwhile, the Chinese elite was sipping wine from Persia and reading Buddhist texts brought from India. This wasn't just commerce, it was cultural fusion on a scale the world had never seen. Fast forward a few centuries, and trade was no longer limited to sand dunes and saddle sores. The oceans opened up. Enter the age of sail. Europeans got really into building ships, colonizing islands, and discovering continents that already had people on them. Global trade got a massive steroid injection. Though, let's be honest, a lot of it was violent and exploitative. The spice trade? Fantastic for flavor. Absolutely brutal for indigenous populations. But economically, it turned sleepy ports into powerhouses. Venice, Amsterdam, London. They became global command centers, not because they had factories, but because they controlled the flow of goods. That's a lesson that still echoes today. Whoever controls the logistics controls the wealth. And speaking of logistics, you ever stop to think how bananas, literal tropical bananas, end up at a gas station in northern Finland? Like, how did we make that normal? You can be 3,000 miles from the equator and still peel open a perfectly ripe banana in January. That's globalization in action. Not glamorous like silk caravans or clipper ships, but way more efficient and way more invisible. Modern trade is so seamless we forget it's even happening. You buy something online, it ships from China, clears customs, gets sorted by AI, and ends up on your doorstep in 2 days. The journey that took Marco Polo half a lifetime now takes 48 hours and costs less than your dinner. But here's the plot twist. Global trade didn't just evolve from carts to cargo ships. It mutated. In the 20th century, we invented something that completely rewired the game. Containers. Yup. Giant metal boxes. They're not sexy, but they're the unsung heroes of the global economy. Before containers, ships were loaded by hand. Crates, bags, barrels, all stacked manually. It was chaos, slow, expensive, and prone to theft. Then came containerization, a simple idea. What if everything was packed into standard-sized boxes that could be lifted by cranes? Boom! Global shipping costs dropped by up to 90%. Suddenly, it became cheaper to build your product halfway around the world. Supply chains stretched like rubber bands. Factories moved offshore. The modern era of just-in-time production was born. Your smartphone? Designed in California, assembled in China, with parts from Korea, Germany, Taiwan, and a dash of rare earth metals from the Congo. Global trade had officially entered beast mode. And yet that beast isn't untouchable. Because in 2020, a virus showed up, and suddenly the whole system cracked. When COVID hit, trade got exposed, and not in a subtle way, in a why is there no toilet paper in the entire country kind of way. Supply chains that looked bulletproof suddenly crumbled like a badly baked cookie. Ships piled up at ports, factories shut down, microchips disappeared, and the phrase global supply chain disruption became something even your grandma started saying. The pandemic didn't just slow trade, it shattered the illusion of its invincibility. For decades, the system had been optimized for speed and efficiency, not for resilience. Everything was sold just in time, there was no slack. A single delayed shipment in Shenzhen could ruin a product launch in Seattle. Companies scrambled, governments panicked. Suddenly everyone was talking about reshoring, friends-whoring, and strategic stockpiles. It was like the world realized, wait a second, maybe putting all our eggs in one giant, fragile, hyper-optimized global basket was kind of dumb? So here we are in 2025. Trade didn't die, it evolved, but not like a slow Darwinian evolution, more like a techno-fueled mutation. Because here's the thing, while ports were jammed and factories idle, something else kept moving at full speed. Digital trade. We're not just shipping goods anymore, we're shipping data. And that's where things get weird. A startup in Nairobi can now hire developers in Vietnam, market to clients in Berlin, store their code in California, and process payments in Singapore, all without shipping a single physical thing. That's trade. Invisible, instant, and booming. In fact, as of April 2025, digital trade is outpacing physical trade in growth rate by more than 2 to 1. According to the World Trade Organization. And it's not just Netflix subscriptions and Zoom calls. We're talking AI models, code bases, crypto services, digital designs, even synthetic DNA sequences. Trade has moved from cargo ships to code packets. And with that shift, a whole new infrastructure is rising. One that doesn't use roads or ports. It uses fiber optics, satellites, and quantum-safe encryption. Imagine explaining this to a merchant on the Silk Road. Okay, picture this. You're selling your finest rugs, but instead of camels, your customers are on TikTok. They pay you with crypto. You send them a 3D printable rug pattern. They print it at home with bamboo fibers and leave you a 5-star review. Yeah, wild, but not that far off. Because in 2025, the product isn't always a product anymore. Sometimes it's a file, a service, an experience. The barriers to trade have dropped so low, anyone with a phone can enter the global market. But hold on, trade is never just about technology, it's also about power. And right now, there's a power struggle unfolding quietly but globally. The US, China, the EU, India, they're all racing to dominate trade standards for the digital era. Who gets to control the pipes, the payment systems, the algorithms? This isn't just economic chess, it's geopolitical Jenga. Because if you control the flow of data, you control the future of trade. That's why we're seeing digital trade agreements popping up faster than ever. As of this month, over 30 countries have signed the Global Digital Economy Charter, setting shared rules for cross-border AI training data, e-commerce security, and intellectual property for digital assets. But not everyone's playing nice. Some nations are pushing for data sovereignty. The idea that data generated within their borders should stay under their control. Others want open flows. This tension is shaping a new kind of Silk Road, one made of code and contracts instead of camels and caravans. And here's another twist. AI is becoming the new trade partner, literally. In 2025, over 40% of B2B trade negotiations are being partially handled by AI systems. Smart contracts on blockchain platforms are automatically executing deals, resolving disputes, and managing cross-border logistics without humans touching a single document. It's efficient, but it raises serious questions. Who regulates AI-driven trade? What happens if two AIs cut a deal that violates sanctions or manipulates markets? We're venturing into territory that no trade historian ever imagined, autonomous commerce. And it's not just the big players. Solopreneurs with laptops are now importing products via virtual sourcing agents, creating digital storefronts in hours and shipping globally via fulfillment centers they've never even visited. One person can now run an international brand from a beach. So what does that mean for the next chapter? If trade shaped the rise and fall of empires in the past, what kind of world are we shaping now? Because it's not just silk and spices anymore. It's AI chips, digital blueprints, code, and culture, and the balance of power is tilting once again. So who do you think will hold the power in the next era of global trade? Will it be nations, corporations, or even AI? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve on the future of the economy, space trade, geopolitics, hit that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell. Because the world is changing fast, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.